Survivor's ready. If anybody has a hidden immunity idol and you want to play it, now would be the time to do so.
The queen stays queen.
You said rustle feathers.
Did you do that?
Yeah.
I'm supposed to glamor you. We have ripe bananas all the time.
Dude, my prize isn't even $1 million. My prize was that I fell in love in this game. Love at first sight. Her name is Candace.
You officially go down as the dumbest survivor ever.
Welcome to Not Game, All Personal. Hey, we are a Survivor podcast here, talk about all things Survivor, more specifically the events of this past week. I'm Nathan. This is Tony. How you doing, Tony? How you feeling? Ready to talk about this episode?
Yeah, this was my favorite episode. I loved it.
Yeah, mine too. I wonder if we enjoyed it for the same reasons.
Yep, of course we did.
Well, where would you like to start? I'll let you take the lead here. Is there anything that stood out to you on a personal level that you're like, wow, this really speaks to me, it affects me, anything like that?
No, it was just a same old episode. Just all the people I love to love,
Oh, really? So all the people you love are still in the game?
Yep, love them all. I'm just a loving person.
That's fascinating
women.
because I think. Okay, I didn't realize we were jumping out of the gate being all defensive on that accusation already. I forgot about that one.
We weren't.
All right.
Yeah. I feel like we gotta start at Lavo. We gotta start where we always start.
Are you nervous that I'm gonna accuse you again of hating women? Is that still haunting you? Do we need to address
I'm
this? All right.
The only people hating this episode are men, so we're good.
Yeah. To cut the tension and address the elephant in the room, you pulled what I have pulled in previous seasons, okay? So you're not alone here. You're in good company. Where the week after we draft players based on how far we think they're going to go in the game, your guy went home.
It's outrageous that Keyshawn went home this week. It's outrageous. I forgot that I even picked him for this. So it didn't even occur to me. It's insane based on the last couple weeks that he would be the one to go. Blows my mind.
Based on so even leading up to this episode, you're still convinced that you didn't see it coming at all.
No, would you say that you did leading up to the episode?
The one thing. Here's what I'll say. I think the one thing in hindsight, to answer, no, I didn't see it coming. But in hindsight, I don't know if we talked about it, but last week at Tribal Council, there was the moment where he completely outed the 4-person alliance. Right? Remember that? Where he goes, as long as us four stay strong, and everyone's kind of like, what? Even I think Teeny kind of looked over, and was like, what? Why are you saying that? I think that maybe that got brushed under the rug a little bit as far as he is far more confident than he should be in moments like that. And I think that ultimately could describe what happened to him this episode, where he felt so confident in the plan going forward that he had this other little maneuver he was trying to work to better set himself up that essentially was the reason he went home, at least from what we saw. There was a plan to blindside Rome, which was going against Rome's plan to vote out Soul. And because Keyshawn wanted a decoy and put it on Genevieve, that's when she apparently woke up out of who knows where, because who is this player? I don't know.
Yeah.
And seemed to be the one that orchestrated it, which I kind of blew. I think that was the most surprising part to me, is who is this game player Genevieve that apparently is this aware
on this season.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like he made the mistake of you have to know, first of all, why are you throwing names out there? Why are you doing that? Why are you sitting there with Rome and say, right? Because he was with Rome and he was like, hey, how about this person that I know is your number one? We say her because here's some reasons why. Why are you throwing out that name? It's so unnecessary to be throwing out a name at that point in that kind of a situation. And obviously it's going to get back to her at some point somehow. That's just how it goes, because people share information, especially when they're close allies. So that was confusing in general. And like you have to have your plan set. You have to have in your mind that you're potentially not going to vote Soul. Like at that point, why was he still talking as if Soul was the one going? If he was ever, I feel like from the beginning you knew that he was going to try to pull Soul in and try to do something. And so it was weird,
Yeah.
all of that. That it just seemed inconsistent the way it was edited, maybe. I mean,
Yeah,
that's intentional. Maybe that's how he's playing all over the place, like just shooting seeing what sticks.
yeah, I don't know. It was bizarre, shocking. I think a different question to ask is, do you think this was the right move? And if so, who do you think it was the right move for? Obviously not Teeny, probably, right? I think this is bad for her game.
Very good for Teeny.
Do
I
you
think good
think
for Soul, just because Soul's sticking around.
yes?
Rome, it's good because he was being targeted by. I feel
So I
like
guess it's
everybody
just
else
like
it's good. It's bad for Teeny, good for everyone else. I would say.
even Genevieve, you think like this was a good move to get him out?
I would say so because it solidifies like everything with Rome. But now there's the potential for them being like, hey, just so you know, Genevieve was 100% in on going for you, which I guess you can never say she's 100% in. She could have just been lying to them the whole time.
Because she was the
Um,
one that first told him that it was him.
Yeah.
So
So
I
she
think,
gets to
yeah.
control that narrative.
Yep.
And yeah, you can't, if you're going to try to make a move with somebody, you can't have it out there that you were going to go for them or even like try to put votes on them. That's just wild to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think it's definitely positive for Genevieve, for Rome. Soul, it's positive in that he didn't get voted out, but negative in that Rome is still there and Rome is still 100% after Soul.
Yeah, I think the tough part is Soul probably had the least amount of agency in that decision, mostly
Mhm.
because so much of it depended on Rome stealing the vote. So it's
Yeah.
like once Rome stole Keyshawn's vote, it was a pretty clear signal. Okay, we're not voting for Rome right now. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
it's not going to be Genevieve and me versus Rome's 2 votes. It's going to
Yeah.
be 3 votes, so I have to go along. So I don't know. It's hard to tell like how much of a decision Soul even had in that moment. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think it is a decent move for everyone. I think the way that I was looking at it too is it did feel like we had these kind of pairings, like 3 duos on this tribe. Because I'm still like, can we get any backstory on like the Rome Genevieve relationship? Because that just it doesn't make sense to me. We haven't seen
It's just suddenly
anything.
they're working together and they're pals, and that's all we get.
I mean, they kept talking about it last week too, despite Genevieve having only like 1 confessional, and so it's just like I want to believe it, but like, how close are they actually? Can we actually
Mhm.
see them bond? Can we like do anything? And so I think in that sense, why would you get out Soul? Well, I think like in that sense, why would you get out Rome, who is apparently your number 1 on this tribe of 5? Why would you get out Soul and make these apparent like duos a 2-2? Like it makes sense now
Mhm.
because now Genevieve and Rome seemingly have the advantage where Soul and Teeny aren't inherently working together, and perhaps there's some bitterness between them. Like is Teeny
Yeah.
going to team up with Soul after she voted out his number 1? Is he going to team up with her once he voted out her number 1? So I
Mhm.
think numbers wise, it's not a horrible move to keep the advantage with your duo.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think one thing that I didn't like is I feel like if you steal a vote, you shouldn't be able to vote for the person you stole a vote from. Because to me, that's like
Hmm.
them voting for themselves, which you can't do.
Oh,
Like if you
that's
steal a
interesting.
vote, it should still have to like function as if it's their vote, and so I should be able to, like in that situation, like you steal souls to go for Keyshawn or something. It completely changes how it works, but I feel like being able to steal somebody's vote and then just pile on them like that doesn't feel awesome.
I guess I didn't really think about that. Undecided. I don't know how I feel. I'll have
Right.
to... I mean, I think, yeah, the outcome would probably be the same. Maybe there's more confusion about who the vote's going towards, because I think, like, the issue is the second that advantage is played, everyone knows who's going home. There's not even a question.
Yeah.
And he's completely defenseless. There's not even like the
Mhm.
question like will he play his shot in the dark? I don't know. So in my mind, like the steal vote is almost more powerful than an idol in some ways because I don't know if that's true. But like at least like with an idol or if like votes get cast on you, you always have the shot in the dark, like that's always the backup. So I think like the fact that there's an advantage that removes even that safety net makes this pretty powerful.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It like there's nothing you can do when the tribes are this small to combat that. There just isn't. They had like the 2-2 tie that they were going to use to divide it up. I'm interested to see how that would have worked. Like, does he get to steal the vote on the second round, or does he not? Is that what they're counting on? Um, but yeah, it's a very powerful thing to have for sure.
Yeah. My other question now in hindsight, is it just pretty much confirmed that Teeny and Keyshawn probably made a mistake in the vote last week by not voting out Rome?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like 100% not even like debatable, just
Yeah,
like you chose the wrong person.
yeah. And dude's got so much power, man. He did. I know I said earlier I love everybody. He was pissing me off in this episode. I think that was probably to be expected from you. You probably saw that and you're like, Tony's gonna hate this.
I mean,
Um,
I think everyone hates it. I don't like. Is there a single person that's like watching the show being like, I like Rome? There was okay. I haven't talked about the Survivor Facebook group yet this season. People are
no.
calling for him to get kicked off because of him bullying Soul. I don't know if your thoughts on that, if you
Oh,
want to sign that petition, but yeah, I mean,
I'll
like
sign
Survivor
it.
shouldn't let bullies on.
Yeah, bullying's wrong. Solomon said something at one point where it was like, "Yeah, I'm not used to like people just being like this towards me, especially somebody so much smaller than me." And I was like, "That's hilarious." And it felt
Yeah,
like Soul was kind of the bully there. But I understand following somebody around when they're looking for an idol. Yes, it was getting to Soul a bit much, but when he's like, "Can I just like go sit on the beach for a little bit, like by myself, and like not have you breathing down my neck?" And he's like, "No, I don't have to." And it's like, why are you doing that? Like that. I don't like that part of Survivor. I don't like when you're intentionally trying to play mind games just to like make somebody angry in that way. I think there are ways to do it where I don't mind it, but it's like let the dude go sit by himself for a little bit. You voted out his only ally, and right now he's at the bottom of the tribe. He maybe wants to just chill for a little bit. Like you're just being a tool bag at this point.
yeah, yeah. And I agree. And I mean, I was on that page last week as well. I think it was especially sweet to watch him fail so bad at the puzzle. That
That
was
was
just so
so
satisfying.
good. So freaking satisfying. Especially when I thought that he might be going home after that. Oh, it was
That
good
would have
stuff.
been better. And then I like Jeff kind of calling him out multiple times, like during the challenge, also at Tribal. And then Rome just standing his ground. He's like I don't know. There was no better way to do that. Like it's just that's not what we're good at. Like oh goodness, it was like oh my gosh, you can't even admit that. Like, but I think that just like describes him where he's just sitting there trying the same thing over and over, refusing to believe that there's another option to like
Hmm.
being good at something. And I think that just speaks to his stubbornness and I think the way that he just operates where he's so convinced he's right to the
Yeah.
point that when he is wrong, it must be another reason for why he failed. It could not
Hmm.
possibly be because I made a mistake. It must be some other factor here.
Yeah, and that I can deal with somebody who's a little cocky, but that I feel like made my dislike of Rome turn up a little bit. I'm sure in real life he's a decent dude. I feel like I always have to say that because I feel like when I'm really railing on somebody, I feel like I'm being mean. But like going from the cockiness to the like unable to accept that like maybe he did something wrong to that extent, it's just not a good look, man. Like I just no, I'm not interested. And then he's like acting all angry and upset after he was like, "Oh, they were gonna vote for me," and like all vindictive. It's like, dude, take it easy. Like it's just too much.
Yeah.
Too much.
He's a lot. I am more very curious to see how much longer he's in the game because it feels like now he might be around for a bit. Uh and I don't know, but like I could also see like this episode being the peak, you know? Like, we needed so
Yeah.
much character development from him to get to this moment specifically, where him and Soul kind of make amends for the time being to blindside someone using his steal a vote. Because, like, now he doesn't have any advantages, so there's that.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, he could be an easy vote. And I think that would be a valid vote for anyone except for apparently Genevieve to want to get him out.
Mm-hmm. And Rome for sure threatened Soul, right? I hate when
Oh,
people
yeah.
like threaten somebody and then they're like, it's an ultimatum. And it's like, yeah, that's a threat. That's what you just did. And then you try to act like, no, it's not a threat. I'm not threatening you. No, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It makes me mad.
Yeah, I don't know. It's odd.
You're like, I don't care.
Yeah. I don't know. Rome is gonna be he's gonna be a tough one to keep watching. That's for sure. I
Love to
don't
hate him.
think that this is over. I think we're gonna see a lot more of
No.
his antics coming up.
I kind of want him to reach the merge just to see how the rest of the tribes deal with that.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think that's gonna be the funniest thing ever. Yeah. Is there anything else on Lavo, the Red Tribe, that we
I
need
think
to talk
that
about?
covers it. We can bridge the gap by saying Teeny didn't have her vote because she went on the journey with Carolyn and Andy.
Andy, that was it.
Yeah. And so she decided to give up her vote even though she was going to tribal that night. Like,
Yeah.
it wouldn't have ultimately mattered all that much based on how tribal shook out. But she didn't have her vote, and so she lost her closest ally.
Yeah, I was trying to think through like how much that actually affected. And I don't know. I think the only thing it really affected was now there was 100% no reason to include her in this plan. Not that they
Mhm.
would have, but there's a chance where it's like, hey, just so you know, like we don't want you to vote for the wrong person. And then
Mhm.
she might have went back to him, and then I don't know, but like now you have this person that's just a non-factor. So
With Genevieve, you mean?
with what?
Genevieve is the non-factor? Is that what you mean?
No,
Or
Teeny with
and
no vote.
Teeny
Yes.
was the non-factor because she lost her vote. Gotcha.
Yes. So, you know, it probably doesn't affect the outcome, but I think it does affect some dynamics where I think even like the blind side on her might be more justified because it's like, why didn't you tell me? It's like, well, you didn't have a vote, so there was no reason to. Like, I don't know if that would be effective, but I think it is just a different dynamic than a straight
Mhm.
blind side.
Hey, and there's nothing better that can happen to you than losing your closest ally.
Yeah, so go Soul and Teeny, I guess. And
Yeah. I'm rooting for
who
him.
else? Andy. Andy lost his closest ally apparently, right? I don't know. Kyle.
Nope. Nope. I'm not giving that to Andy, but Kyle, I'm in. I'm in for Kyle. I was surprised that Carolyn and Andy just neither of them wanted to. Andy, I understand him not wanting to give up his vote. Carolyn, I was surprised that she didn't even consider it.
Yeah, I was as well. But it's also hard to tell because I think we have probably like the least amount of information from her
True.
tribe. Like I think the only thing we've seen from her is that she does have this, you know, close relationship with Sue and kind of Gabe as like the third, I think. I don't know. I need to see them go to tribal to see where everyone's really at here. But
Mm-hmm.
I honestly I just maybe think it was like a smart decision to be like that firm,
I also
perhaps.
think she was about to volunteer, I think. Like, if you watch the journey, she's, like, about to open her mouth right when Teeny's like, I'll do it. So I wonder if she was about to volunteer right in that moment, but Teeny beat her to it.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be. It's also I don't know. I was trying to look. I don't know if I was paying that close. Is this advantage amulet that much different than previous ones, or is it essentially the same? Was the only twist this aspect? I couldn't remember, and I was trying to see, and I don't see any difference on my initial
Basically,
Google search.
all of the amulets in the game have to be in agreement for who they're saving. And so if there's three, all three have to be in agreement. If there's two, both of them have to be in agreement. And if there's just one, then it's just an idol. So that's how I understood it. It sounds pretty familiar. I don't think it's anything too groundbreaking.
Yeah, because I think I'm still confused on why this is seen as such an advantage, especially because I think like when it was first introduced, I think us and so many other people like kind of theorized that like this could be used against you if you are in a three-way relationship holding this thing.
Hmm.
And I think we have seen evidence of that being the case. You know, there was I think it was Austin specifically that was like,
Yeah,
just
targeting the
like
people. He was just
very
mad he didn't
okay
get
with
his
it.
sandwich.
Right. And so like it has been historically seen as a tool or an excuse to get people out to give you more power. So I
Yeah.
don't know. It's very weird where they were all like, "Oh, we need this thing." And so if I'm teeny, it's like I'm losing a vote and I'm also getting this like I don't know, not the greatest advantage in the world, like being forced to work with these people that I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah, you like to have options come the merge, but yeah, it does kind of force you into like at least pretending to be super buddy buddy with these people and
Mhm.
hoping that that will benefit you in the end. Whether it does or not, you never. It depends on the season. But yeah, you have to pretend to be buddy buddy with them no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be interesting. I don't know. That I'm not holding out hope for that trio. Just
Nah, I do like how every single episode the journey has been different though. Like
yeah.
it's a different game, it's a different challenge. Somebody's always losing their vote, somebody was always getting stuff, but it's always different, and so that makes it super flexible, I think.
Right, agreed. Let's talk about Yellow. I think Yellow had some
Do
interesting
it.
things. Interesting dynamics. I don't.
Hmm.
So Sam and Sierra are apparently just rightfully called out as being this duo,
Yep.
according to Annika, and they don't like that. And I'm
Which is
like, I,
correct. Like Annika, they did say that to Annika, so it's not just her making stuff up. That's like a legit thing that people are saying.
yes, and I think it is a very obvious thing. And so the fact that they're surprised, I'm like, I don't think we've seen you talk to anyone else here.
No, but do you think it's obvious to other tribes? I think that's the part where it's scary. I think everybody within the tribe sees it pretty clearly. I think the girls
Hmm.
still think they're close with Sierra, but the other tribes looking and just being like, "Yeah, those two are tight,"
I
would be
I would
surprising to me.
assume there's a lot of talk about other tribes
Yeah,
that we probably just don't see. You know, like you're sitting around on a beach and there's, six other people on this mat across from you that you haven't met
hmm,
yet. I'm sure you have all sorts of theories. So I'm sure it's like the tiniest thing. Like maybe they want
yeah,
immunity and the two of them were like next to each other or maybe consistently there. You know what I mean? Like you probably just
yeah,
grasp onto anything. And so for them, I don't know. Like I think you just have to be hyper aware that like whatever body language you're giving off is going to be put under a microscope for these other people to interpret and come up with their own assumptions. And in this case,
yeah.
correct.
I mean, nailed it. Except not dating. That would be
No.
an awkward situation to be put in when they both have a fiance and hopefully an almost fiance based on what Sierra said. That's tough to just on national TV be like, those two are dating, right? And there's like, no, we're not, I swear. But they're
Right,
still
like to
super
have to go
close.
home and explain that, like, hey, just so you know,
Yeah.
I was accused of dating someone.
But I swear I'm not. Like, oh yeah, that's convincing, Sam.
That's tough. Yeah, and so I think with that, they both kind of wanted to give some distance, but specifically Sierra tried to initiate this alliance with the girls,
Hmm.
called the Breadwinners, and it kind of got out of hand where she told Andy about it, trying to instill their bond in this. And I believe her. I think her
Yeah.
preferred trio would be Andy and Sam, from what we've
I
seen.
think at that point it would be. I'm not sure so for sure anymore, but at that point for
Yes,
sure.
yes, correct. So she tells Andy, just kind of like giving him confirmation, and he buys it, he believes it, and he's like, okay, cool. This is what I was looking for. I was looking for information to show me that you're my ally. And Andy tells that to Sam, and then Sam gets all upset at Sierra for telling
You tell
Andy
one
and not
person,
him.
you gotta make sure you tell the person who's supposed to be your number one. That's also a thing.
Yes, agreed. Not good.
Especially because Andy is of the perception that those two are closer anyways. And he's just gonna be that way. Yeah, it's just tough. It was tough to watch where it's like, she was probably gonna tell him soon, but then just didn't because it wasn't a huge deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Equal breadwinners.
Well, it felt like he was especially offended by the name, or not that, but like the fact that they had a name, and so
Yeah.
like that made it feel more real. And so I think like it would have been okay for him to find out like, oh, you're working with these girls. Yeah, that makes sense. Like let's split up
Mhm.
and look for clues or whatever. But the fact that like there's a name assigned to it and everybody now knows that name except for me because like Andy was the last person
Yeah.
and so
Fair.
um I don't know. And I think like in her perspective, it also makes sense because like you do want to solidify something with Andy and make him confident so that he's not just thinking like, oh, she's always going to choose Sam over me, which she probably will, but
Yeah.
now I don't know, maybe Andy feels a little more secure being like, oh, maybe she'll choose me over him. And so like I can see why she wants to give him something more to
Oh
assure
yeah.
that.
You have to be careful when you're like giving. I don't know if you can be like, hey, just so you know, I haven't told Sam about this, but I'm telling you. But you have to be careful about who you're telling because it's perfectly reasonable for Andy to assume that Sam had been told, and so it was just an like awkward situation where I don't think Sierra meant anything by it, but I can see like, yeah, it all big misunderstanding. All sides like logically made sense. It's one of those tough scenarios.
Now, do you think there's any world where she is justified to be upset at Andy for telling Sam about this? Because I think that was something that wasn't really explored. But in my mind, I think that's the biggest point of like, hey, I told you this in confidence. Why did you go and tell him before I was able to?
It's hard to because Andy was so like confident in their alliance, and that's why he thought that it was okay to go share that. And so he was like so confident that they were a solid trio that any information could be shared between the three of them that he went and shared that information. And so yeah, you can be upset like, hey, maybe don't just go sharing it immediately after we have a conversation in case I need to tell more people. But ultimately like that's kind of what you want in a tribe member.
So do you think she should have just done a better job of like explaining like, hey, don't tell Sam yet? Or do you think that would have been harmful as well?
I think if she says, I haven't told Sam yet, let me tell him. I think that
Mm-hmm.
that clears it up. Unless she just didn't want to tell Sam, in which case there's not much you could have said without raising suspicion. So I feel like if she didn't want to tell Sam, she was just risking it at that point, and that's the game you play when you do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know if this is enough of a fracture to like have them not work together. I have a feeling they still will, but perhaps this is the beginning of something where down the line, perhaps Sam doesn't feel as much of a need to keep her as his
Hmm.
priority like he once did.
Yeah, I mean that definitely felt there. Yeah, it definitely felt like there were cracks there, but it almost feels like a tribe that has never gone to tribal because it's been 3 episodes since they've been to tribal. So it's been a while, and so like yes, they made that decision the first time, but it's almost been so much that it's muddied the waters enough that it's like I don't know where anybody stands again anymore. Because
Mm-hmm.
every episode, it's like it's trying to show us these fractures, and so we don't. It keeps showing us these fractures, but then not telling us if those fractures were real or not, basically.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm very curious. I also want to see them. I want to see everyone go to tribal. That's the problem. I want to see. I know I just said I want blue tribe to go to tribal, but like I also want yellow, like because we've been talking about it forever now. Like,
That's
what's
what
gonna
happens with the
happen?
back-to-back tribals. Oh
Uh,
wow, those were literally 2 day, like a day apart.
yeah, they
They
gotta
voted
fit a
out
lot in.
her, and then yeah, the next day it's like, yep, get rid of Keyshawn too.
How many days
It's
did they go
wild.
again? 26.
26, yeah.
Yeah, so they're at this point, assuming they're past day 9 or whatever, like about a third the way done. More than a third.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, no, 9 days would be whatever. Okay. Yeah, no, that is right. I know math.
Yeah.
All right, blue
Hey, I'm
tribe.
proud of you. Thank you.
what what happened on blue
Big
tribe?
story here is Sue, right? Sue finding the idol.
Yeah, how thoughts on Sue finding the idol? I'll let you take
I
the
think
lead
it's a
here.
really cool twist to have it like be hidden and then there be a bunch of paint that you have to hide. Um, yeah, it's just a new like wrinkle on the like try not to get caught, but you have to do this thing, which I had a lot of fun with. And yeah, that's all I have to say.
Do you think she did a good job not getting caught?
She had a surprising amount of time, it felt like. I feel like usually when we see stuff like this, it's like it happens and then somebody's walking up immediately. And it felt like the people that came up behind her were like checking on her almost. Probably also getting water, but like, are you okay? It's been forever. And so it was very interesting that she like had enough time to like clean it up as much as she did. And obviously she still had paint all over her, so it wasn't perfect, but um she played it off and it didn't feel like there was a ton of suspicion. They were like, "Oh, that was kind of weird," but I don't remember them being like super confused by it.
Yeah, I wonder if it helped because Caroline was one of them. You know,
Maybe.
and I we didn't really see a follow up. Like if she does eventually tell Caroline, which I was assume she would at some point. Could be wrong.
Because no one ever keeps them secret.
Right. But I will say, from what I know about Caroline, I don't know if she would tell anyone else. That might be the one duo
Mhm.
that, like, who would she tell? I don't know.
Gabe?
I still don't know how I feel about Gabe. I can't get a read on him.
Oh,
Like,
with
what?
the little like preview for next week, I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna hate Gabe next week." I think
Wait, what was the preview? I don't even remember. I gotta pay attention
he's
more to those
very
previews.
upset.
At who?
You'll have to wait and see.
Ah, what a tease. Kyle, we got nothing on. No information. Nothing.
Don't even think he was in the episode.
He's just there. Poor guy.
Mhm.
And then Tiana, yeah, I mean, not a whole lot. I don't know. I don't really know. Like, I need to
They
see
didn't
this
give us
blue
a ton
tribe.
here. It was like before the first challenge. It was Sue telling them that she's 45, and I'm sorry,
Mhm.
she doesn't really look like a 45-year-old woman. Like
Whoa,
why do
rude.
we lie about age at that point? I don't understand it. People like you. You being 59 is not going to make people not like you. Just a weird thing. I feel like she feels like she has a lot of like pent up like bitterness. I don't know. It's weird, but hey, she did it, and we'll see how it does for her. I wish her luck.
Do you think it's more reasonable to lie to say, so in her case, being 58, saying she's 45, or in what was his name? Was it Sam from a couple years
Sam,
ago,
yeah,
who was 21, or was he 19 and said he was
he was 19, I
21?
think.
What do you think is the more reasonable lie? Like, what makes more sense strategically?
Interesting, because like when you're younger, you
I
kind of
knew
have the
I knew
benefit.
you would like this question. When she said this, I was like, I want to compare these two lies.
Yeah,
Okay.
because when you're younger, you kind of have this idea that you're an idiot, which can work to your advantage by like, oh, he doesn't actually like he's a kid, he doesn't really know what he's doing, but can also raise your threat level. I don't see a downside to being older other than the fact that maybe you're not connecting as much with some of the younger people, but she had Gabe and Carolyn quickly pull her aside and be like, I want to work with you, and has like a firm alliance. So to lie about her age at this point doesn't feel like a necessary thing in this specific scenario. So honestly, I feel like lying and then saying you're older makes more sense to me than lying and saying that it's
Well, I think
so
like it's
situationally based
I
too.
think I think part of it is she probably told him before their alliances were formed, right? So like
Yeah.
this episode's the first time we are
Well,
hearing
when I
that.
feel like when you're a woman, you can get away with not sharing your actual age for a while.
That's true. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I don't know how the
because they
Survivor
showed
small
it
talk
today. It
works.
could have happened a couple days ago, but they showed it in that episode, like it had happened that day.
Yeah. Cuz I think like the thinking when you're younger is like you want people to think you're older, but then like even that I'm like why? Cuz I didn't understand when he did either, other than like you want people to take you seriously, right? Like
Yeah,
if they
that's
know I'm
yeah.
19, they're going to think I'm immature and not want to work with me.
Hmm.
I think when you're older, there's a different level of stereotype, but I think my thing is does going down to 45 remove that stereotype that much? Because I think the stereotype that she has right now is she's an older woman, she's the mother figure of the season.
Mm-hmm.
That
She's still the oldest person in the season, even if she's 45.
well, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, I think
Yeah.
people. I'm sorry, but if you're 24, 25, someone who's 45 is ancient to you. You know, like
Mhm.
20-year-olds think that we're ancient just because
Honestly.
we're, 8, 9, 10 years older than them. And so
Yeah.
it's just like, I think that's my thing is, I know it's a fine lie. I don't know. I just don't, either way, I don't really see a huge benefit to it, I guess.
No. But hey, if it makes you feel more comfortable in the tribe, like do what you got to do. Um, that's not the only thing that she's lied about. She's lied about a couple things. If she feels like that's the best way to get to the end, I mean, more power to you. I can't imagine going into a game and lying about like much about who I am. Granted, I'm not a lawyer, and obviously that's the scariest thing that you can be in Big Brother or Survivor. Everybody knows that.
That or a
I'm
cop.
also not an undercover cop,
Yeah.
and so that it'll be fine.
I want to see someone lie about, like, I'm looking here. Teeny's a freelance writer. Like, her to go in and be like, I can't let people know I'm a writer. Like, if they find out I write stories, they're gonna
Mhm.
think that I'm gonna run this game. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna lie and say I'm this.
John comes in, he's like, "Man, I'm a podcaster. They can't know that because then they'll know be able to talk in front of people and be entertaining, and they won't. I'm a jury threat then, or a final tribal
Yeah.
threat. They
Hey,
won't take me. You know,
podcasters go first in this game. That's what
that's
I've
true. Always
learned.
too big of threats. Everybody knows that. Maybe I'd lie about the podcast thing.
Yeah, I think the only lie is downplaying your knowledge of the game, perhaps. That is probably like a justifiable, okay, it probably hurts you more than it helps you for people to know how much you actually know about what's going on.
It's kind of it's a really hard thing to pull off when you're like experiencing all of it, and like especially when you have to kind of be on with that lie all the time. If it's something you love, you have to like almost take down a notch, like, oh yeah, this is fine, or like that was kind of a cool experience, when in your head you're like, that was the coolest thing I've ever done.
Sure.
Walking into a challenge and like, oh, I've seen this before, I can do this, and like, wait, I thought you've never watched the show before. Like conversations like that, you know.
I forget you've experienced this, so you have firsthand knowledge of what that's
And
like.
there were also people who knew that I knew the game, and so it was never going to be like a viable lie for me.
Right. No, that's fair. Makes sense. What else? Did we cover most of it?
Honestly, it felt like more happened this episode, but after we went through it, that's just about all of it.
I think we're just quick hitting to it. I mean, like, we hit all the main points, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It was a good episode. I'm definitely warming up to this cast more than
Yeah,
previous episodes, which is always the case. But I'm excited. I think the season's shaping up to be good.
I think so too. And yeah, you just got to get through the first little annoying part, and then what you really start to see who the real stars of the show are, and that it always gets more entertaining.
Yep. All right. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up. Crazy that
Awesome.
this episode is just barely longer than what we thought would be short Big Brother episodes, but that's fine.
Golly. Maybe
All
we're just used
right.
to going short now. Maybe we didn't get any
Hey.
deep, like philosophical questions about Big Brother or Survivor, so I think that was a big part of it.
We always could. There's still time. Well, I think the age thing was that's
Yeah, that's true. That's
there's
true.
just I don't think we were passionate either way. I think that was the problem with that scenario.
Mhm.
So I'll
Mhm.
come up with a more passionate debate for next time.
All right, I'm ready.
All right. For more episodes, visit notgameallpersonal.com. Find more episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you listen to podcasts. Really follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube at NGAPPod. That's at NGAPPod. I'm Nathan. This is Tony. And we'll see you next week.
14 seasons, 2 pals, 1 podcast.